triggers are simply a poke at a painful place. It is healthy to feel that trigger. Okay, that's human. It's an indicator of something that's still healing.
Welcome to the Rewire For Birth Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cindy. I'm a naturopathic doctor and birth guardian, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here. This podcast is all about rewiring the way we think about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum by offering a holistic perspective that empowers you to embrace your journey with confidence and strength. Each week, I'll bring you expert insights, valuable advice, and inspiring stories to help you feel prepared and empowered. We'll dive deep into the transformative experience of bringing new life into the world and explore ways to make your birthing journey truly beautiful.
Please remember that although Cindy is a naturopathic doctor, she is not your naturopathic doctor. This information is made available to you for educational and informational purposes only and should never be used as a substitute for medical advice. Please see rewireforbirth.com/disclaimer for details.
On this episode of the podcast, we have Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers. Dr. Sellers is a licensed sex and gender feminist psychotherapist, a best-selling author, researcher, emeriti professor, and media personality whose expertise spans sex therapy, spiritual intimacy, parenting, and social justice. Her revolutionary perspectives have been expressed on platforms such as Spirituality and Health, Refinery 29, Vocal, Medium, and Bust magazines, along with many podcasts, radio, news, and TV interviews. Known for exposing the impact of sexual shame on our ability to securely attach to our partners and instruct our children to attach to theirs, Dr. Sellers' book, Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy, has had global impact. Her latest book, Shameless Parenting, Everything You Need to Raise Shame-Free, Confident Kids and Heal Your Shame Too, was a new release bestseller in 5 categories. She speaks throughout the world on how to heal and how to raise shame-free, relationally confident children. And she can be followed on Instagram at Dr. Tina Shameless, which I will put in the show notes for you. And I want you to use this conversation as a foundation, as a roadmap as to how to navigate very tricky topics that we don't get a lot of guidance on. But thankfully, we have Dr. Tina coming in. So let's dive right in. Welcome, Dr. Tina Schermer Sellers, to the podcast. I am so grateful beyond measure to be doing this because I really, truly feel that your expertise, your background, your experience is so important for mothers and mothers to be to hear, because it profoundly not only is going to impact the life of their children, but it is impacting their experience as parents. And of course, this is going to have ripple effects that just go into the whole community. So let's get started. But before we do, I just want to say welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I am so glad to be here and so looking forward to our conversation. Your audience is one of the groups that I am most grateful to speak to, because I know that the work that I do and people who take it on, it makes a huge difference in their experience of imagining parenting, becoming a parent, and actually holds your hand through all the different ages and stages, which is something we're never entirely ready for, but it really helps to know we're not alone in it and have real solid guidance as we're doing it, so that we enjoy the process of our children growing more than we might. And as somebody who has 4 that are now in their 30s and getting close to their 40s, I can say it's the shortest, longest time. Some days feel so long, but it goes by fast, and you really want to look back as well as your adult conversations with your kids and feel like we did it. Like we did a good job together and we're still really connected to each other. And that will add so much joy to your life.
Oh, that is so beautiful to hear your perspective as a mom with little ones right now. I can affirm that the days can sometimes feel incredibly long, but I also already feel that it flies by. So this is an important conversation because for all of the parents with young children who don't even have their kids outside of their womb just yet, this is going to make a big impact. Tina, as one of my first questions, kind of going to the start of parenthood, right? Like before conception, even the intimacy between the two people who are going to create this tiny little human coming into the world. Already, there are some layers that we can get into because of your background, kind of deciphering the enmeshment of religious purity culture and sexuality and how that impacts our intimacy, our connection to our partner. I think it would be really valuable for the listeners just to get a sense of where that comes from, to get a sense of how that can potentially impact their relationship to themselves and to their partner and impact the whole fertility journey, right? Like throughout pregnancy, going into labor, birth, and the early postpartum period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. When I think about impacts, like what impacts the partners we choose, the relationships we build, the intimacy we have or don't have, or somewhere along that continuum, the things that feel easy and the things that feel really hard and complicated, those parts of life, that is often what leads us into, should we be parents? Okay, let's do this. And then however that journey goes, right? That can have its own set of complexities and lessons and all kinds of things. But what impacts how that journey goes more than almost anything is what happened in your family of origin growing up and in your community of influence growing up, and what was happening in culture at the time. In other words, like, for example, right now, and really over the last 45 years or so, we are selling people things 24/7. And we do that through exploitation. We do that by convincing you you're not good enough. And then that invites you to get the thing, do the thing, be the thing. So we have a layer of just real manipulation that is how we drive our economy. So that's having an influence on us. We know that there are 50% of 6-year-olds, 2/3 of 9-year-olds, 90% of 15-year-old girls that modify their diets already because they've already learned they're not good enough. So it is a silent but powerful influence on our life. But then also what I call our default, like what got set in us about what was right and what was wrong and what should I care about, what shouldn't I care about, had to do a lot with the interactions in our family of origin, if we are a part of a community, in that community, however much that's involved in our life. And for people who grow up in homes that were silent and shaming around bodies and sexuality being what my desire, like my desire to have a friend, my desire to be a friend, my desire to get close to somebody, all of that's very human. I believe that we come out of the womb, when we take that first breath, we know little itty bitty infants, moments old, will be rooting for the breast, even though the milk isn't there, right? That isn't a food thing. That's connection and pleasure. Like, oh, there she is. There's that smell. It's like, it's a human desire in us to have connection and pleasure. We see that throughout the lifespan, but we also start to mask it. But if toddlers don't get enough of safe, loving touch, they will suffer a kind of brain damage. Their central nervous system will become damaged. And then I think we learn to adapt and not show that vulnerability so much. But when we look at people who have Alzheimer's in our memory care, they are seeking connection and pleasure with the same effort they did when they were little, like putting sand in their mouth, like whatever feels like it could feel good, pleasure and connection, they're doing it. And it's hard for adult children to deal with that, but it's so core to the human condition. But if we are in an environment that is shaming, being angry with us around how that gets naturally expressed as a toddler, even before then, like kids are grabbing things around 10 months old, 9, 10 months old, around 11 months old, somewhere in there, while they're getting their diapers changed or they're in the tub, they're going to find their genitals. That is going to be one of the best days in their life so far, because we have so many wonderful new nerve endings in that part of our body. But what we need as a vulnerable little human whose right brain is the only thing, like their sensory input, their central nervous system, their somatic input is all they've got. They have no language yet, right? They need somebody to go, yep, that's your vulva. It's a fabulous part of you. Now let's finish getting you diapered or finish drying you off or whatever it is, just giving them the info, labeling. Yep, that's your ant, that's a tree, that's the kitty cat. That's what we're doing at that age. And we need to do the same around bodies and genitals, right? But when a parent and grandparents, whatever, have grown up in silence or silence and shame, their internal response is to go, oh, gross, dirty, yucky, slap the hand away, right? And what we have to remember is kids don't stop doing that, finding that place of pleasure, until they start to figure out and put together, they have the cognitive development to begin to put together, oh, I can go in my bedroom or I can go in the bathroom, right? Like kids don't stop picking their nose and eating the burgers just because you say it the first time. It takes them a while to cognitively put 2 and 2 together. So yes, we're still going to, as they get a little older, say, yeah, that's a wonderful part of your body. It's also a special part. And when we want to touch that part of our body, anybody in our family, we go into our room or the bathroom and it's a private thing that we do. And we will say that 150 times at least. It's just like any social moray we're trying to teach, we're just teaching it. And we know that they're going to take a while to learn it. Less than 5% of people in the US grow up in homes that are not silent and shaming. In other words, the vast majority of people grow up in homes that are silent or silent and shaming around bodies and sexuality and desire and pleasure, all of those things. And so they've got people reacting to them all the time, but they have no one giving them the instruction of what they need. Saying, this is how you are a good friend, or this is part of why that part of your body we think of is special in our culture. And you just need to be giving them, this is like, no, you don't have to have everybody hug you if you don't want. Let's talk about who owns your body, right? Like there's all kinds of things that we need to be teaching at each age along the way. There ought be no such thing as a talk on sexuality. There ought to be what I say is 100 1-minute conversations. And it's actually more than that, because it's literally coming up all the time. If you think about, this is what we used to call family life education. It was emotional intelligence education, emotional quotient. It is relationship education. So how do we do conflict? Who owns our bodies? How do we say yes and no and why? And how do we get help? All that stuff, relationship education. And it's body and sexuality education, which they need little itty bits all along the way. And so if you grew up in a home that was silent or silent and shaming, then the only place you could get your information was from friends or media. But what you downloaded from a pre-verbal state likely is something must be profoundly wrong with me because I keep getting in trouble for just being me. Because these are natural curiosities that infants and toddlers, and as they grow, it's a natural human thing. But that's getting shut down and shamed, and they're getting scared by the people who sustain their life.
Who we're
So it
supposed to have the
becomes,
most connection with.
that's right. So it becomes a somatic shame. In other words, it's in my body. It's going to manifest when you start finding people to date or whatever, when you start being in that, the shame you feel and the mask you learn to put on, because you were sure if anybody really knew who you were, they couldn't possibly love you, right? That mask is going to now influence all your intimate relationships. And by that, what I mean is the people you bring closest to you, the people you are most vulnerable with, right? It's going to influence that because your self-esteem has been impacted. You don't believe perhaps that you are beloved, that there has never been on this planet anyone just like you, and that you are nothing short of a miracle, and that the world needs you to be as authentically you as possible, because that's your gift to the world, is to be fully you. Instead, they think, I'm not okay. I've never been okay. I can't remember when I was entirely okay. I was sort of okay maybe when I did this in school, what I produced or what I accomplished. Then I got attention or whatever it was in your particular family of origin. But rarely is it that sense of who you are, because it often got shamed really, really early on. And so I'm really wanting to help people understand both those influences, how to heal that for yourself, and then how to give your own kids or the kids in your life or grandkids or whatever, how to give them those little pieces of what they need, because then their download will be entirely different, right? And when they go out to begin to partner or whatever, they're going to feel like, yeah, you'd be kind of lucky to get me. Or
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what exploitation is. I know how not to do it. And I know how people do it. And I really pay attention to not doing it. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
they know these nuances that make a difference in our lives and in our very closest relationships. And you can change. This is what I love about this work, is you can change the legacy in one generation.
Oh,
You can
my
watch
God.
your kids have kids and be entirely in a different relationship, both to themselves and to what's happening for this little person that they're raising. So
Mm.
it's good work.
Oh, good is an understatement. Right now, as I'm watching my two little girls develop, and I can totally attest to those tiny conversations that happen on the potty or like at bedtime. It is these like tiny little 1 minute conversations and nudges and the body language involved and all of that. Such important work, so important for them in their little bodies to understand what feels right, what feels wrong, all of these things. And I even as a parent who is educated, who is very interested in being a conscious present parent, who understands the impact of my own childhood wounds, that I am going to be triggered by my own daughters and bring it
Yeah.
into this dynamic, still I find myself having this like, knee reflex reaction when I experience certain things with my daughters, right? And so
Yeah.
it takes a lot of energy just to first be aware and then to not have that reaction, but to be responsive instead. And so for anyone listening, I really invite you to just kind of be curious about how you were impacted as a child, how you developed around the theme of sexuality and just your body and your self-esteem and your confidence. And if you're pregnant right now, like you're already starting these
Oh, yeah.
relationships, right? It's so interesting to think about.
Oh, yeah.
How I know your book focused, your first book focused around the church, but by the stats that you gave, like less than 5% of households are openly talking about this and giving the download that is beneficial to their children instead of
Right.
shaming. Where do you see the biggest? Is it religion? Is it culture? Is it school? Like, where do you see the biggest source of a lot of this shaming, I guess?
Most of the time, what people tie back to is what happened in their families. Like when I have been a clinician for over 30 years. And so I've heard a plethora of stories. And so often things get tied back to what they originally learned in their families of origin, but also as they were adolescents, what they remember absorbing from culture. And then often they have experiences. Well, it's a both and. They have experiences of exploitation as children, right? Many, 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 many people do. And then they have experiences of exploitation in their culture and amongst their peer group, right? And so if we raise boys with pornography as their primary sex education, and let me be specific here, when I am talking about pornography here, I'm thinking about pornography for the heterosexual male. Okay. That pornography is often, if you're just getting it off those sort of regular sites out there, it is often filled with exploitation and power abuses. So boys are taught girls are there for your pleasure. They are basically your property and you can do whatever you want. And she's going to pretend, or she's going to look like she likes it, or she's going to feel the pressure to make you feel like she's liking it. Mm. Okay. And that isn't helpful in a relationship. So if that's what he's bringing in and she's bringing in, I've got to be what he wants me to be. It's not about me and my pleasure. I watched that stuff too. And I saw how I was supposed to be. Right. And so they come together and their sexual relationship often becomes very transactional. He doesn't know what he doesn't invest his heart in the way that he longs to. Nobody helped that. I was all, like feminine, sissy, that was whatever put down. So he shoves down those emotions, even though he craves intimacy, maybe even more than she does, because many women will do intimate friendships. They have friends, girlfriends that really know them. A lot of guys don't. So they're longing to be seen, known, loved, and accepted. But the pathway that they know to get there almost guarantees he doesn't get it, right? But then she's also pretending. She's also being what she thinks he wants her to be, or they want her to be, or the culture wants her to be. And it's not authentic to her either. And so she's lonely inside it. And he's lonely, and their sexual life is transactional rather than nourishing both of them. And that's really the point. If there is a point to our sexual lives, it ought to increase our bonding and increase our joy and fun. I mean, goodness, life is hard. This is one of the places we could share connection and pleasure with somebody who is our person, who is a safe person. But often we're getting, especially heterosexuals, are getting into relationships. They don't have any idea how to cultivate that, and they're really unhappy. And they talk about that when they're in. I just want to say a little comment about, so when you say what all is doing all of that, I would say it's such a combination. And when you get in to talk to people about their real stories, it's like a ball of yarn. It's all woven together, and people have their things, their stories of great impact that had great impact. When you're talking about triggers that your kiddos will trigger within you, we'll have triggers in all kinds of areas of our life. Triggers are simply a poke at a painful place. It is healthy to feel that trigger. Okay, that's human. It's an indicator of something that's still healing.
Hey mama, are you ready to transform your birthing experience? We're offering a free guided meditation to help you start rewiring your brain for an empowered birth. Imagine feeling calm and in control, embracing your inner strength, and making your birthing journey smoother and more joyful. Doesn't that sound amazing? It does, right? And it's possible for you. To get started, visit rewireforbirth.com/meditate and grab your free meditation now. Let's make your journey beautiful together.
We, like highways, as we had experiences growing up, it created grooves in our brain, basically. That's what it was. When we're trying to change our reaction to our partner, our reaction to our children from the trigger, because we want to set a new standard, basically. We want to set a new experience. We have to do two things simultaneously. We have to notice the trigger. We have to send lots of love to ourselves, saying, it's okay, baby, you deserved better, but that's okay. It happens in our growing up that we often don't get in places, things that we need. It's okay, and you can heal. And then you monitor before you react on your face. You hold your face into a neutral or loving expression. So your insides are going weep, 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 right? But your face is, oh, great question. I'm so glad you felt safe enough to ask me. I would love to hear more about this. I'd love to talk about this with you. I'm so proud of you for bringing it to me and asking me this. Or what, we just give a pat something right off the bat with a very neutral place, while we're simultaneously like rubbing our tummy and rubbing our heart, kind of feeling like we're okay. We're okay, because we're setting their default differently. And it's a lot of work for the person that is changing the legacy, working hard to heal themselves and do something different. It's a lot of work. And it's the most important work you can do in your life, because you're setting the next generation into a different experience, and they deserve that, right? It's really important work. I just don't want to give the message that the trigger is going to disappear because you want it to. It will eventually, as you keep doing something else, your brain is going to heal and you'll have new neural pathways. But you're not going to feel that in your body until your brain is healed. And then you're going to have a day where you go, that used to really trigger me, and I'm not feeling triggered anymore. This part of this healing process is doing really well, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that helps in the answering of that question.
Oh, completely. It's practical too, right? Like whoever's listening, including myself, we now have a little practice that we can do anytime something comes up. And what I'm hearing is this what you would label as reparenting. So
Sure.
you're reparenting yourself while simultaneously parenting this little human in front of you. And
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I want to punctuate that healing yourself is the best investment you can give into your parenting. So it will eventually, you'll have less triggers, you'll have more joy and more fun, because the triggers, the fear responses, the shame responses are going to diminish. That is really worth it, because what comes in its place is curiosity and fascination and joy. It's like, look at you. I love that you love that. I have never thought of that before. Whatever. Yeah. I remember one of my sons being fascinated with spiders and thinking, Lord have mercy, this is going to ask so much of me, but I am going to come with, wow, tell me why you really like spiders, even though my insides are going, don't you dare let that out in the house, right? So this is part of what we're doing in that healing process. And I think it's worth being grateful to our children that they keep inviting us into those healing places, because we get better as we go. And in the second book I wrote, in Shameless Parenting, I'll often say to people, if they know that they've got a lot of shame and stuff inside themselves from culture and from their family of origin or whatever, I'm like, first take yourself through the whole book. It's a workbook. It's really easy to do. You can go birth to 2, that's 1 week, 2 to 4, that's another week, or whatever, all the way up to 18. And imagine that you order the books from the library, because at the end of every chapter, I've got here's the top resources for parents and kids. So get those at the library. And then imagine you're reading that chapter and you're reading the books that I recommend in the chapter, and you're reading them to your 2-year-old inside of you. And just notice the places where you go, oh, that would have felt really good to hear that from my mom, my dad, my grandma, whatever. And just let that soak in, because that's what you deserved. We have such a long, horrible history about separating body from spirit or heart and then shaming it when everything about us was created. I mean, if you are following some kind of thought like that, who created your body anyway? Who gave women clitorises for one purpose, right? We got to wrestle with this. We got to do this, you know? So anyway, yeah, I just think when we can parent ourselves through our inner 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, like all the way up, and just imagine it, we're going to feel the shame start to drop off us. And we're going to feel this part of us that's like, oh, I had been wanting this. I can imagine. And I'll say to some people, like, if you've got pictures of you in those ages, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, whatever, put it in front of you while you're reading that chapter of the book, or or paperclip it inside that. So you're actually looking at her or him. And then really, like, because that we have all those parts inside of us. Like, they're very much there. But we want to be conscious about how they're informing us. Because if they're informing us in ways that where we're passing down legacies we don't want to pass down, we want to know at the time or before. We don't want to look back, ideally, and say, wow, I wish I had known that then.
Yeah. Yeah. I also know it's never too late, but it would be lovely to do it when it's most beneficial and influential, when your little ones are developing, right? In those very formative years. Yeah.
And I have lots of people will say, gosh, I wish I had known that then. And I'm like, but here's the thing. You can sit down with your kiddos, no matter what age they are, and say, I want to tell you about something I'm just recently learning that a part of me wishes I knew as you were growing up, but I want to tell you about it now because I'm so grateful for it. And I just would like to talk about what it might have been like if I had known it while you were growing up, or just, we are all doing the best we can with what we have. Bless your heart. And we can't do better than that. And there are going to be things you're going to learn in your 50s and 60s and 70s that you wish you knew then, but you didn't. But we can be honest about that. And when we do that with our kids, even in our grown kids, we're modeling how learning is a part of life, how forgiving ourselves is a part of life, and that they too can do the same thing. That's an important modeling that we're doing for them. It keeps the conversation open, right? So
absolutely. What's coming up as you're speaking, so many things. Like, I can even feel it in my body, like my body responding, and memories of childhood. But I do want to get into the archetypes that kind of shape our perception of sexuality as we're moving from the quote unquote maiden and going through this rite of passage into motherhood. And even before that, if you're living with your partner for the first time when you get married, that's a big transition. And speaking from my personal background, I grew up Christian, went to a Catholic school. My parents are of Middle Eastern background, and I'm a girl. So there were so many layers of shame when it came to my body, when it came to my sexuality, when it came to my expression, my voice, everything. And I'm sure you'll expand on this, but for me, there was this archetype of, my body is sexual, but only in the gaze of another. And then and it was shamed. And then I'm moving in with my partner for the first time only after we got married. And now all of a sudden it's okay to express the sexual part of me, which there's no transition from it's not allowed to do what you got to do. And then going from that into motherhood, then we get into this like idealized, like Virgin Mary type of archetype. And it's just so convoluted. So I'm wondering if you have any wisdom to share when we've been put into different archetypes at different phases of our life and we're moving into motherhood. How can we kind of just be aware of that transition?
Yeah. I love that you shared pieces of your actual story in there, because it gives us an image of what it could look like. And in one family, it could look like this. those archetypes are implanted into us through experiences in our families of origin, church of origin, whatever. It's also likely epigenetic. In other words, our mothers, her mother were treated in similar ways or whatever, it's very deep within us, and it often is very subconscious, unconscious, unaware. It's in the periphery. And then it can kind of start crowding in, right? I thought I was supposed to be really excited about sex and I'm not. Why is that? Or whatever, after you're married, let's say, or after whatever the archetype said. And again, it's the archetype, it's the milieu that you grew up in that's shaping these things for you, right? And so be curious about what were the norms, beliefs in my family that were spoken and unspoken around what is a woman, what is a man, what is gender, who has power, who doesn't have power, who has a right to impose their wishes, who does not, who's important, who isn't important. What came from my family, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts, aunties, whatever. And then also what was coming across in the culture when I was child, like let's say up to age 20, okay, birth to 20, what were the ideas that were being sold in the culture that I was in at that point, right? Try to bring what's in the periphery in front of you. So then you can become curious about it. We all were marinated in something, a series of some things, right? If you can become curious about that, then you can begin to ask questions, seek information. Part of the reason that I wrote the first book was because I could see in the lives. I taught in a graduate human sexuality, or excuse me, a graduate marriage and family therapy program for almost 30 years.
Wow.
One of the courses that I taught was the graduate human sexuality course. And then I had a clinical practice. I started to see around the year 2000 a dramatic increase in the amount of self-hatred, humiliation, disgust about one's body, one's sexual experiences or not, one's sexual wants or not, like all the things. And it was coming out with this just wave of disgust about themselves. So it was revealing that, but it also was simultaneously revealing how much they didn't know that was true about just having a body. So what I realized I was seeing about that time was the first wave of students who had hit their adolescence in the 90s, when across the US, we had abstinence-only education in the majority of our schools that was federally funded. It was religious education, and it was 80% medically inaccurate. It was fear-based. Wow. That's what they got. So nobody, even what we had before, and you can YouTube, there are two videos, one from 1947 and one from 1962, I believe, on sex education in America. And you can watch the video that they showed the kids from the 40s through the end of the 70s until 1980. And then they took away the research money for studying sexual health, human sexual health. And they put in abstinence education, which of course was not education. It was just don't and fear-based. And then at the same time, what else was happening in 80? We had a growth in music videos, then video games, then online pornography, and then social media. So that's what we have been investing and growing in since 1980. And for many adults now, that is where they got some of their influences from, all of that. So they feel all this this shame and confusion and lack of knowledge. It's the only area that I can think of, and I would love to have someone challenge this, but it's the only area that I can think of significant human importance to our happiness that we fail to teach accurate information and instead download exploitive, inaccurate information. And then we take our hands off and we expect people to be able to do intimate, loving, safe relationships and to be parents different, not parent in that way. It's impossible. It's like saying, yeah, someday you're going to drive a car and it's really fun and it's a good and important thing to do, but we're not going to get in a car. I don't want you looking at them. I don't want you lifting the hood. I don't want you to know. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for you to know any of that stuff too soon, but you will. And then at 16, we hand them keys and we tell them it's safe to drive on the freeway.
That's basically what's happening.
That's a death sentence. Well, in the same way, when we tell people that all that's important is extraction, taking from each other, getting what you want, right? And everything about your body is somehow either a tool for manipulation or exploitation or to be exploited, or it's just bad and you don't need to know anything. And yet it is intricately woven into the health, wellness, vitality, and thriving of our adult lives. There was research in 2017, not till 2017, I always say if you can believe it, but then I'm like, yes, of course we can believe it. There wasn't even an operational definition of sexual shame. Like, what is it? So thank goodness for Brene Brown, right? Because she made shame, regular shame or common shame, a household name. But it's important to understand sexual shame because it comes at us through these ways that we're talking about, through shaming experiences and a lack of information. I'm going to read the definition for you and for your audience, because what I want you to hear as you listen to the definition is how impactful it is to our ability to do attachment, right? To attach people to us, right? Whether that's partners or children even.
Okay.
Because underneath it is this, we don't see our value at all. So sexual shame is a visceral feeling. So it's in our body, and it's in our body because it started so young, right? Visceral feeling of humiliation and disgust toward one's own body and identity as a sexual being. And a belief of being abnormal, inferior, and unworthy. Deep. This feeling can be internalized. First, that's where it begins, internalized, but it also manifests in interpersonal relationships. So like I said, it starts with that infant and their caregiver, and then it starts to land inside. Something must be wrong with me. Grandma doesn't like me. Mama gets mad at me. Dad screams at me. Like, it starts to be internalized, right? Having a negative impact on trust, communication, physical, and emotional intimacy. So what is in those key relationships? All of those things, right? And they're all impacted, right? Sexual shame develops across the lifespan, as I said, in interactions with interpersonal relationships. But then when culture and society lays its layer on it, right? And it creates a subsequent critical self-appraisal, which will go on every day, all the time, until we decide to heal it. And that's what is berating us. Look at you, you're too fat, you're too this, you're too da 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 da. And this, to me, I think of how it ties into becoming pregnant, having the incredible sacred role and experience of growing a human in your body. You're a parent from the day you find out, sometimes even before, because you've changed your diet, and all kinds of things. And yet what we're doing is so incredible. But often what people hear in there from their critical self-appraisal is, look at you, look at your body. Nobody's ever going to love your body. Look at those stretch marks. Blah, 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 blah. Instead of, you are a goddess, nothing short of a goddess. And we can go back thousands of years and we have statues of goddesses, and they all have drooping breasts and big bellies because it was revered at one point. But it doesn't serve patriarchy. And so we chop women down, right? So they keep being consumers. I don't know. So there is also a fear and uncertainty related to one's power or right to make decisions, including safety decisions, along with an internalized judgment toward one's own sexual desire. And I like to say that this last sentence, Peggy Ornstein, who's a New York Times journalist, wrote 2 books. One was Girls and Sex, and the other was Boys and Sex. And she went and interviewed 80 to 100 girls for the one, boys for the other, about what's it like to grow up today, now. What's it like? And what she found when she was doing the girls' study is she would talk to these girls that were in high school and college, and they would describe themselves as feeling competent and confident and knowing what they're going to do and all this, until they got ready to go out. And then they were putting down 3, 4, and 5 shots of hard liquor because they didn't know if they had the right to keep themselves safe or if they could. These were not kids from religious backgrounds. This is how widespread sexual shame is, and it has created a rape culture, right? And it's dangerous out there. So this isn't innocuous. It impacts us at our most tender places that have to do with happiness. There's been a study for 85 years at Harvard called the 85-year happiness study. And what they find is that longevity and quality of life is directly correlated to the strength of my relationships, the authenticity and honesty and love in those relationships. We are hurting exactly that. So it's not a benign issue. And when I started studying and researching this, and then was involved in reading this particular dissertation, I was like, we have to talk about how serious this is. Because if we were going to change anything that was going to make an impactful difference, it would be supporting exactly your audience, supporting the people that are in relationships or trying to become pregnant, becoming pregnant, and then wanting to do right by their child and enjoy that experience. If we could affect that, we're affecting the entire future. And that's why what women do is so important. I mean, I could go on. I mean, when we invest in women, it's a really good investment, because women tend to create for not just them and not for notoriety, but for their community, which includes their family, which includes the boys and girls they're raising, or the kids they're raising.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is such impactful work. And I listened, it was a study, or I think it was a documentary many, many years ago, and they gave fathers a certain amount of money and saw how the fathers spent their money, and they gave mothers a certain amount of money and saw how the mothers spent their money. And the mothers over and over again were spending their money in ways to support their families, whereas the male partner, this is obviously a generalization, but generally we're spending in ways that didn't always support the family and the community. And I think that is a part of our internal maternal neurological hardwired network, right? We are just wired that way. And it's interesting when we talk about this phase of our life when we're entering motherhood, because it is such a transformative time. And I think it is a moment in our lives where we are presented with opportunities to become aware of our conditioning and kind of put a stop to it, in a sense that actually, I'm not going to be the people pleaser that I've been for my whole life anymore. My needs actually matter at this moment. I'm the one holding this baby, right? And so it gives us this very visceral somatic experience that almost like pushes us into this vortex of transforming all of our conditioning and our wiring, hence the name Rewire for Birth, right? It's very multifaceted. And in the birth experience, like, because that's so interesting to me, like the actual labor and birth experience, because we bring so much of who we are into that experience. It's not just about the prenatal yoga and, you know, your diet and the stretches you did and all of that stuff. It is so much about being connected to your body, being connected to who you are as a mother in that moment, connecting to your baby and the signaling that you're getting, and giving yourself permission to receive the support that you deserve in the way that you desire it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a sexual act. It's a sexual act. It's the same hormones. It's the same body parts, right? It's the primal aspects of who we are. So I think your work is so relevant to this phase of our life. And so with that being said, focusing on like pregnancy, labor, birth, and early postpartum, what would you say to the mothers who are preparing for that experience, who maybe are conscious or not conscious of some of the sexual baggage? Can I phrase it that way, that we are carrying into this experience?
Yeah. Gosh, I would say, I mean, if we use the word sexual, we're using it as an overarching term, you know, term having to do with life force. Yes. Like our sexuality is part of our life force. And that's because when sexuality is authentic, it's based in desire. I desire to be close to you. I desire to use my body to transmit what I'm thinking and feeling and wanting. And right, it's very bio, psycho, social, spiritual, sexual. I mean, it is, right? And as you're saying, as is the birthing process, as is the growing the baby process. That also is all of those things. I would say that it's important to recognize that our society in multiple ways diminishes the value and erases the common complex experience of becoming pregnant, carrying a child, readying for birth, going through the birthing process, and being in a postpartum place, which is, there's no way to overemphasize this, which is impactful everywhere, right? Everywhere. Your body just went through maybe one of the biggest things it ever has gone through. And on the other side is a little human who wants 24-hour a day convalescent care. Both of those are extraordinary experiences. And mothers in particular, and I'm not meaning to diminish fathers at all, but their bodies, minds, hearts, and souls are being asked to do this in an incredibly taxing way. And so what I would say in saying all of that is, there used to be a time when we had a village around every woman who was preparing and delivering and having a new one, because she needs it. And we have lived in an individualized, focused culture, which diminishes community, diminishes village, now for generations, right? And so if you find yourself feeling like, I should be able to do this on my own, why is this so hard? No, honey, you need to have around you some really good folk that are going to come in on a regular basis. And I mean, someone's going to do grocery shopping. Somebody is going to cook for you. Somebody is going to come in and just sit with you and hold the baby while you go take a nap. You need to get in place, or have someone help you get in place, a little village, because that's actually what you need to do this. You don't get to stop a week down the road when you just can't see straight. And your partner will be able to do many things but they're also going to need their own village, or you'll both do better if there's two of you, if you have a village around both of you, right? Because there are significant shifts and changes going on. I listened to a podcast one time of Dan Savage was on it. Dan Savage is in Seattle and is a sex educator. And he was talking about when he and his partner brought DJ, their son, home from the hospital. And so we have two men raising a tiny little bit human. And he would say, it dawned on me that I had heterosexual friends where when the women went in for their checkup, the doctor would talk to them about when they could engage in vaginal penetration again. He said, do you realize no one ever says that to a gay couple? Ever. There's no assumption there that you're going to be able to do anything. And also people aren't thinking about it. He goes, I can remember the two of us leaning on the back of our like bed frame and jacking off because that was the best we could do. I remember hearing that. I was actually working in the garden and I was like, I had never thought of that before. It is so subliminal in our culture that what you're doing is no big deal. You ought to be able to do it just fine. And you're really supposed to be there for everybody else. And you don't matter. And that is not what's best for you or your children. Your children need to grow up seeing you care for yourself and draw boundaries and get help so that they know they can do that. They've got to see it in you, right? And I have people in my life that are very close to me that are like adopted children. And one of them is a year into her first child. And I went through the whole process and her mom had died. Her mom was my best friend and died of over a decade ago. I've been walking really close in this again and just be like, I can see all that she absorbed. And even though we've been trying to get at things, it's a constant thing, so it's like, I can't affirm enough how important it is that women put the mask on themselves first before they put it on anyone else. Understand that it will feel wrong because the culture basically is constantly telling you should be able to do it better with less. That's BS. It always has been. It always will be. We all do better when we have a village around us. And the more demanding our life is, the more we need that village. And so you work to start to create that village so there can be some, different places where you can get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much every single podcast recording, we talk about the importance of community, the power of community, and the skill set that it takes to call that community in.
Yes.
Because it's our default is to say, I'm okay. I don't need help. I can do this. I'm fine. And there's a guilt when you do need help, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to tell people what I really like to eat or whatever. I'm like, no, we are crafting a meal train that is specific. Know this, know that, love this, love that, don't want this. You know what? And we're going to keep tweaking it because you deserve to go, oh, there's going to be a meal that I love. Right there. Not, oh, it's going to be lasagna again or whatever the deal is,
Coming back to that
pleasure and nurturing. Like you need nurturing. Where are you going to get nurturing at this time? Where is your relationship going to get nurturing through this time? When my oldest had their first, I said, okay, so I'm going to be impositional for a moment and you can push back on me. I would like to, and this was when my granddaughter was about 6 months old, and I could see the exhaustion and I was coming down every other week as we lived a little further away from each other. But I remember saying, okay, here's what I'd like to help with. Once a month, one of you goes away for the weekend. The next month, the other one goes away for the weekend. The third month, you both go away for the weekend. So we're stocking up on breast milk. We're doing all the things so that can happen. And it's evolved now. The oldest is now 8. It's evolved into they both take time to do stuff themselves. They take time to do stuff as a family, and they take time to do stuff as a couple. And that's, grandparents, fortunately, they have grandparents that are relatively close who are so happy to have that time with the kids. I remember saying to my son, you don't get to keep having a marriage that you enjoy if you start to ignore it at this point. Mm-hmm. Marriages are organic systems. And if you fail to feed it, you fail to tend to it like a garden, it's going to turn into, and like in the Pacific Northwest where I live, it's going to turn into a forest. And then it's a lot of work to get it back to a reasonable kind of garden again. So I want to help you remember who you are as a couple, right? And then have your family time, because it's going to be easy for you both to put your kids first and your jobs. And there's so much asked of people right now and families right now and the finances and all of it. So if you can find somebody that'll help you set up some kind of system that you can look forward to caring for yourself, getting sleep, caring for your partnership.
How many marriages would be saved if they all had someone like you being like, here's what's going to happen. Month one.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there are far too many therapists out there who, when they see a marriage of 10 or 12 years with 2 or 3 kids, and the people are just functioning as housemates together, they far too often look and blame them, right? Like see them as doing something wrong. And then I just like, tell me what you've done to take care of yourselves and your marriage since you started having kids. Well, we haven't had any time. We don't have any time. We don't have any time. We don't have any money. Okay, so where you are now is fixable. If you had it, if you liked what you had before, what you have now is fixable. It just has to be cared for. But we live in a culture that ignores marriages. It's the foundation of your child's learning. We have research to show that when kids are worried about parents because they never touch each other, because they make mean glares at each other, because whatever, they go to school with a white noise machine on in their head. And that impacts their ability to absorb data. But when they're coming from a family where everybody's good, people talk it out, people have sane arguments, they love each other. I see them flirting in the kitchen. There are times they say you have to knock before you come in because we might be playing with each other and we don't want you around, right? When they see a marriage that is solid, they go to school with no white noise machine on. This is hard research. So the marriage is whatever the adult thing is that the kids are growing up in, that is their foundation. That is their soil to grow in. And yet, where do you see us encouraging and giving a break to? Corporations don't, work doesn't, schools don't, friends don't often, it's more the craziness that I don't like that's out there,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I feel like I wasn't aware of it until I became a parent, which is when you really need the village. Because when it's just you and you're solo, you can come and go as you please. You could take care of yourself. But when you become a parent, it's really when you become aware of not only how nice it is to have a community, but the actual foundation that it provides for you and your family.
Yeah. And it's trusting that you've got people, and if not, cultivate them, people who actually, it brings them joy to support you, just like it brings you joy to support them. Like, oh, sure, I can make extra of this and bring it over. Or yeah, let me come hang with, and you go to the grocery store by yourself. Or, it's fine. It's no skin off my back. Just, there are lots of people out there that have that kind of natural generosity. And yeah, it's often women, but there are some good guys out there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so interesting. We're talking about these kind of like peripheral things that have nothing to do with our sexuality and intimacy, but it is actually what gives us the vital force to be able to be intimate and playful and curious and deeply connected to whoever we want to be intimate with, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. In fact, there's an old Jewish idea that when a child takes their first breath at birth, it's the spirit of the divine entering their body, and that courses through their body with every breath. That's inspiration, the in spirit, until their last breath, expiration, the exiting of the spirit, right? That life force presents itself as desire. I'd like to go build this. I'd like to go do this. I'd like to go play with this person. I'd like to go talk to this person. Desire is our life force. And that life force is ideally what's bringing me to my partner for nourishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
If being with your partner sexually is not nourishing, you guys need to deconstruct what it is. And I'm often saying good sex, because most people have had bad sex. And you can have bad intercourse. It's a real thing, right?
Yeah.
So what is good sex? My opinion, good sex is we both leave the experience feeling more connected and like we shared pleasure or fun, joy together. Okay. If that's not happening, then I often say, get a piece of like butcher paper, put it on the back side of a door that isn't only seen by you guys, and start writing down 5-minute, 15-minute, half hour, 1 hour, one afternoon, 1 day, 2 day, okay, these different sections, and then grab a pen. And as you think of it, what are things that bond you and are fun that take 5 minutes? Write them down, 10 minutes, half a day, whatever. And then you have ideas. All of those are good sex in my book if they're done with you and your partner and nobody else. Clothes on or off, doesn't matter. Right. And so it might be on there, and this is so fun to do before babies come. What might be on there is, I liked sitting in the tub with you in a glass of champagne and just talking and connecting, right? You're going to have more energy for that than something high energy in your postpartum months. Right? And your partner needs to understand that bottom line, they get you. Your eyes are engaged, your heart's engaged. They get you when you're doing things off this list that you both agree to. They don't get you when you're having sex and you don't really want to, or you're just not really that into it. They feel it. And so they're still lonely, right? So you both, you both deserve to bring authenticity and honesty to each other and craft the sexual relationship that no one helped you learn about when you were growing up, right? But and in the Sex, God, and Conservative Church book, Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy, there's a whole section on how you heal that and then how you craft that in ways that work for you, however you are and however your partner is, you know, because we have to build it. It was never built for us. We don't even see it in shows.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even talked about. Like it's bananas. Exactly the car analogy that you gave. Like, don't look at a car, don't think about a car. And then once you're 6, here's the keys.
Here's the keys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a Lamborghini. It's a nice one.
Don't scratch it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many places that I would like to take this conversation, but I think I'm going to encourage and invite the listeners to check out your books, check out your website, because there are so many resources there for the individual, but also the couple, and how they can use this and apply it in their parenting journey, which I think is such important work. And as we wrap up this conversation, I'm going to ask you my last question, and I always preface it by saying, there is a profound imprint that takes place when a new life is entering this 3D reality that we all inhabit. And that can be an imprint of love and safety and trust, which are all signatures of oxytocin. It's like this big welcome party for this new, we're so happy you're here. And of course, that supports bonding, that supports breastfeeding, all that attachment, that connection. What unfortunately happens a lot of the time is that it's an imprint of mistrust It's an imprint of uncertainty. It's an imprint of fear. It's an imprint of survival mode based on the almost 45, maybe more percent of women who categorize their birth experience as traumatic for a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
In my books, that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of the mission of this podcast, is to shift the narrative, is to give the education, the information that parents really need going into this experience. And what you were just saying about the intimacy with the partners, I just think, like, how beautiful would it be for there to be that connection in the labor and birth experience? How supportive and nourishing would that be? And create potentially a more likely scenario of that beautiful imprint of love and safety and trust.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like when enough parents are supported, we are going to birth a generation of humans who are moving through the world from that place of love and safety and trust, instead of what we are seeing today. Because it has impacts on the world, the political landscape, the emotional landscape. And so this is world-changing work. And that's all my way of asking you, what would you like to imprint onto the ears of the listeners? It's a lot of new moms, parents to be, and also women who want to use that creative life force vitality that you're describing to birth something beautiful into the world, a mission-led business, a creative endeavor, something like that.
Yeah, I love that's a beautiful question. As you say it, I find myself thinking about that it is a verb of a question. It's a series of actions across a long period of time. And no one is expecting, or is there such a thing as a perfect parent? In fact, you can't be perfect in a human, because humans are radically valuable and radically imperfect. So you can't be a human and be perfect. So you just need to do, that's not what we're going for here. And we're also going to have some awareness to the way that things are sold to us to increase our fear that we're going to get it wrong, that we're going to hurt our children. I know my bonus niece said, yeah, there was this cradle, and there was advertised that if you didn't get it, there was a higher chance that your child would die of SIDS. And I'm like, that is unacceptable. That is abuse of power. That should never be okay in our culture. But we live in a culture that doesn't have morals around its effect on other people. So when I think about imprinting, I think what I want people to remember is that this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And so take care of yourself first and foremost, even though that may not come easy for you. Take care of yourself first and foremost. And then you'll have inside your bucket, inside your heart, you'll have enough for your child and then for your relationship. But you have to start with you, and you have to be reasonable about that. You know, like, I get to be tired. I get to ask for help. I get, because if you can make space for how valuable and incredible you are, then it becomes easier to ask for help. It becomes easier. And it also becomes easier to remain present to the miracles unfolding every day that you are a parent, literally every day. And this human is going to teach you more than any human has ever taught you. But again, it's going to come over 20 plus years. So it takes a lot of energy to remain present and just loving, open-hearted and loving. Pause on our responses, and slow ourselves down. Ask for what we need, check in with ourselves. So I guess that's what I want to say, is just, this is a long haul, but in order for you to feel good about the narrative that you crafted with your child, you need to have some intentionality every day to do your best to take care of you first, ask for what you need, and then enjoy the honor and the sacredness of parenting another human.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the way you're describing it is almost bringing me to tears. I really, really feel that it is this beautiful, sacred experience. And also, we need so much support. So get used to asking for it, drawing it in, and cultivating that village, that community that we so need.
Yeah, yeah. Can I just say one more thing real quick? I want people to know that if they go to get either book, because they really want to do that work for themselves, heal the sexual shame. That first book is really good at that, and the second book is too. But if they're wanting to do the work, they're committed to it, and they go to get the books and they can't afford them, to feel free to DM me at Dr. Tina Shameless on Instagram, and I can send a promo code for an audio version of either book to people. And I'm happy to do that. I don't want anyone, or maybe a better way to say this is, if somebody is really committed to doing this work and changing the legacy for their little ones and to heal their hearts, I don't want costs to get in the way of that. So please reach out. If you can afford them, great, because that helps me. But if you can't, do not let that stop you. I am really committed to supporting people in doing this work and feeling a sense of joy and pride around how hard they worked to do a better job for their kids than was done for them.
Yeah, I can really feel your passion about this work, because it is truly profound. And yeah, cost shouldn't get in the way of that. I was going to ask you how people can get a hold of you, learn more, and so they can reach out to you on Instagram in the DM.
Instagram, Dr. Tina Shameless. They can also go to the website, and there's, like you said, a lot of things there for free. There's also a lot of stuff on Instagram that's also is free. Yeah, those are probably the best two ways to go about it. And then I'm happy to point people in directions beyond there if they have questions about things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also saw that you consult with practitioners. Mm-hmm. And I think I have some colleagues that will tune into this. So I think that's helpful for practitioners if they're dealing with, complex cases around sexuality. I think you're a great resource for that. So I'll put all of that in the show notes.
I'll also say that I do have something specifically for practitioners, clinicians. So if you're on my website, you can go to the store section. What is in the Shameless Parenting book, I also made as handouts for family physicians, pediatricians, clergy, therapists, educators who are in the front line and often sitting with those parents who are like, don't know what to do with their 8-year-old or whatever. I have a handout for every single age. It's front and back, 8.5 by 11. It gives resources, it gives questions, it gives the whole thing. And if that works better for you, because that's how you're meeting with people, grab a license. And if you once you have a license for making copies, you can make as many copies as you want. You can have them in the waiting room. You can, whatever, it's all there for you. And it's very, very reasonable. And again, if somebody feels like, I think it's like $89 for the whole set. If for any reason you can't, just reach out to me and I'll send you a discount code or something. But yeah, that's for clinicians to make it easier for them. Because I've had so many clinicians like, I don't have time to go back to school and study this. And I don't know this stuff. And I don't know what to do. So I don't do anything. And then that makes me feel bad. I'm like, I got you. I got you. Here, use these, and in time you'll end up reading them. And then that will help you, but
yeah. What a great resource. So I'll put all of those links in the show notes so people can easily access them. And again, so much gratitude to you for your work, the legacy that you're creating, and the way that you're impacting individuals, the way that you're impacting couples, the way that you're impacting the next generation. Thank you so much for this, Tina.
Thank you so much, Cindy. It was so fun to be with you today.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Rewire for Birth. We hope you found our discussion inspiring and empowering. If you enjoyed the episode, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us reach more listeners and spread the message of holistic, empowered birth experiences. Feel free to mention what you loved about today's episode and how it helped you feel more prepared and confident about your birthing journey. Your feedback not only encourages us, but it helps other moms-to-be find our podcast and join this incredible community. Together, we can make a positive change in the world of birth. Until next time, stay empowered and keep rewiring for birth.